We'll move on to our first panel discussion. Our topic for the discussion is the AI shift, focusing on how industries are adapting to the era of AI. First, I would like to request our panel moderator, Professor Rahul Kumar, to take the stage. Professor Rahul Kumar leverages technology to tackle societal and organizational challenges. He works on the intersection of information systems, AI, and digital transformation. His research spans decision intelligence, AI-driven decision-making, and computational analysis. He has been published in leading journals, and he also advises analytics startups and consults on diverse organizational projects. A big round of applause for him. Now, I would like to invite our panelists on the stage. First of all, I would like to call Mr. Sameer Bendre. He's Executive Director at High Zero. Mr. Bendre leads the charge in climate tech and sustainable industrial water management solutions. With over 20 years of experience in IT services, operations, and digital transformation, including leadership roles at Persistent Systems at Tech Mahindra, he blends strategic vision with execution to advance High Zero's mission of creating a water-positive future. A big round of applause for him. Now, our second panelist is Mr. Ashish Pathak. He's a Global Offer Director at BCG. Mr. Pathak specializes in leveraging AI, Gen AI, and digital technologies to transform global supply chains. With 16 years of experience, he partners with leading enterprises to design resilient, scalable, and sustainable supply chains. A big round of applause for him again. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Puneet Sakhuja. He is the Vice President at Hyundai Tech. Mr. Sakhuja is a digital leader with over 25 years of experience building high-performance teams and driving 10x growth through data, AI, and Gen AI solutions. He excels in steering P&L as well as delivery excellence, strategic analysis, and large-scale digital transformations. A big round of applause for him. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them with another huge round of applause to our whole panel. Now, I would request Professor Rahul to take forward. Thank you.
Good morning, one and all. Am I audible? Great.
Hello.
So,
It's working.
warm welcome to one and all. Thank you for taking out time, otherwise from your busy schedules. So, I'll just give you a context before we start this. Last week has been quite active for IIM Calcutta. We have hosted Entrepreneurship Conclave, SEM seminar is ongoing, and more or less in all these spaces we have invited industry experts and delegates. But the common topic has been AI. Whether it's AI in supply chain, whether AI in data analytics and solution provider, or AI in clean manufacturing. The landscape has rapidly changed in the last 10 years, a decade or so, and that speed of change, that acceleration has been quite rampant in the last 3 years. So my first opening question, how do you see this AI landscape revamping the clean energy sector? Because that remains less touched. So the ripple effect has already made a mark in our technology solutions side. With the clean energy side, what's your take on that?
Okay, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. It's always good to see the future, what's going to happen, and how things are going. Quite candidly, when I was first invited for this program, I was wondering, for somebody who is not of the AI generation to be here to talking about AI, and half the questions, whatever you say, oh, somebody would look at a ChatGPT or a Perplexity to find the same answers. What difference can I add? But then I thought that when you look at technology, especially when you look at the green tech and the manufacturing space, there have been changes in some area which are mostly peripheral, if I would say. Say, okay, there may be something happening in supply chain, something happening in the HR, procurement, some of the other areas. But when you look at the core stage, a lot of technology changes are really happening in two areas. One is, of course, because of the technology changes, power generation, efficiencies, these are improving. A lot of good, interesting changes happening in that area. So that's one area which is seeing. More importantly, I think predictive analytics and predictive AI is really playing a big role, especially in the green space. When you look at a solar panel, how you can improve the efficiency, how can really increase, how long a panel can really be effective to give you power, how I can manage the whole power supply situations. So these are some areas which we are seeing a lot of changes happening.
So I'll probe more over there, of course, in general for this panel, but in particular for my own interest.
Yeah.
So where do you see that AI is having synergistic opportunities around clean manufacturing? When you talk about solar panels, when you talk about predictive maintenance, you talk about predicting efficiency or improving efficiency. How do you see small use cases going there and plugging the gaps? Any anecdotes, any experiences?
So currently, I think the opportunities are going to be very small because...
So I need to interact with you more.
No, not only interact with you more. I think the point is that, see, these areas are very, very high, sort of high cost, high capital investment areas. So because of that, really, you cannot really take up immediately call in big areas into say. So I think a lot of experiments will have to be done in the small area. So I can tell you one example. So like if you look at the wind energy area,
right,
people are trying to say that how, because the very interesting thing about wind energy is that the whole wind energy, the system which is put, the tower, that itself is actually pretty a costly system. So how really you can improve the life of a blade by, say, 1.1x can really make the whole this thing much more efficient. So such type of work is happening where, can I tell you, it's not just about simple predictive maintenance, because maintenance itself is difficult there. So we are doing this.
Accessibility.
The accessibility. Or the area which I am working in, which is hydrogen, which is yet to really come there. But when you look at the hydrogen space, how can we make hydrogen more easily available at the end point, and where technology can help me make hydrogen faster and better quality of hydrogen.
So both about the produce and the logistics.
Both the logistics all coming together.
So Ashish, you have been into this sector for quite a long time. And when he's talking about, let's say, capital intensive sectors or industry, what's your take on that? So is it about, because we are dealing with multiple entities in that supply chain network, that makes it more complex? Or is it just about huge investments that we have lower bandwidth for other similar opportunities?
Yeah. So that's a very good question, and both nuanced, highly contextualized nuance that you have said, right? So to answer your question, Rahul, I would say every technology has an industry adoption curve, right? Right now, what we are seeing with AI, the Googles, NVIDIA, Meta,
the giants.
They are giants. They are probably the front runner of it, right? And likely so, right? Tomorrow, if you want to talk about, let's say, space technology, obviously the ISRO, the NASA, SpaceX, that comes to your mind. When it comes to AI, Googles, Microsofts of the world comes to your mind. So to answer your question, even the AI, all aspects of it, including generative AI, including predictive AI that he mentioned, which existed.
So that entire gamut of
the gamut
emerging
of things.
technology.
Now, to your question, the green energy space, the large capital project management, right, infrastructural projects, these are probably, in my opinion, they come in like much later in the pecking order. I'm not saying they are not, and they will always be laggers in this particular technology. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you will see some things happening right now, today, this week, this hour, when it comes to AI, and you will see some things happening to some industries a year down the line, 2 years down the line. Large capital intensive project could be one of those industries. Medical technology could be those industries, not because the limitation of AI, but the limitation of the legals and the regulatory compliance.
So you mean the
associated with
healthcare
that.
equipment manufacturers?
Yeah, equipment manufacturer, and more so because I consult a lot of healthcare, biopharma, medtech companies myself. I am finding the application in healthcare is a lot faster, but what stops it is the regulatory compliance. And you would agree, it should be that way, actually. Like, you cannot simply want to run AI on all the bits of healthcare today. You want to use it in terms of, let's say, drug development. You want to use it in terms of medical imaging and resonance kind of devices. But when it comes to, let's say, distribution, or when it comes to the adoption to the masses, you want to have a barrier which government poses to it. So to answer your question, just to summarize what I said, AI will find application in all industries. Some industries, it is changing world today, now, this hour. Some industries, it might take some time to adopt. Large capital projects is one of them, including the green energy and hydrogen associated industries, hydrogen fuel cells related industries. It's not always limited by technology. It's also limited by the government that poses challenges, and for good reasons, I would say. You don't want to get AI to play a bad cop.
So I'll come to Puneet because he has been dealing with clientele across sectors, and I know he has a lot to add there. Before we go, I need one point of clarity over there. You talk about healthcare sector and how we rope in AI as, let's say, an organization-wide implementation. Governance over there could be from two perspectives. One, pure healthcare regulatory agencies. Second, governance with respect to, because you are dealing with private, critical, sensitive information of patients, so DPDP Act kicks in. So governance from which standpoint is very actively acting as an impediment, or both?
The answer is both. The answer
Examples?
is both. Where government, let me give some example where government is not posing the AI stopping the innovation. One example I gave, this drug manufacturing, the whole drug manufacturing research. It used to take, for a general drugs manufacturing company to file a patent. You know, one of the use cases that I am very impressed in healthcare, if you read the patent document, it used to run like 2,500 pages on an average, right? That was a massive, I would say, in my quote-unquote terms, not so good use of a very highly profiled medical practitioner, because that document, somebody who is with authority used to write that. You know, these are the compositions, this is test results and so on, like 2,000 pages, 2,000 plus pages and so on. With the application of now ChatGPT, we are seeing in the industry, that's probably the best use case you can find, right? Now, that work is limited to, so the 2 months of an effort now is done in just 2 weeks. That's a massive amount, and just multiply it with global top 20 pharmaceutical company, all 6 continents, millions of drugs in SKUs development, how much productivity you have added so far. And the medical practitioners, they're not saying it's taking my job. They're very happy about it. Like, you know, it's saving, I can use my brain to develop another sort of a scenario of a drug development, and not simply type Word document for good 2 to 3 months, and which he or she hates, honestly, right? Because we have the result, but I just need to document it. So
that's very well put. I was coming across a recent article around the AI dilemma, that is it there to replace your jobs? And the leadership lens said that it's not about, we need to position AI not as a replacer, but more as an enabler who will empower your workflow. It's not there to replace you in that workflow, it's more about to empower you in that workflow. So Puneet, we have spoken about these experiences.
Yes.
And mostly we see that AI applications are plugging into the core operations. So when you look into the entire value chain, we have inbound logistics, we have outbound, we have core manufacturing. And we see most of these applications garnering around core manufacturing.
Correct.
So in your experience, how much of your clientele needs pivot around core manufacturing plugins, or you are also focusing around other ancillary aspects of the value chain?
So, you know, when we talk about the value chain, one of the issues that we see is there is an ecosystem that any company has, right? Be it a manufacturing company, or be it a banking, BFSI and all. So there are internal functions, which again, which is adding to the value chain, and then there is an ecosystem around the whole internal functions which is outside the organization.
Business units standalone, and then business units aggregated as well.
Now, if you see the internal functions, and by inherent nature, what we have observed is all the functions and the ecosystem actually behave like silos. There are touch points, but these touch points are not actually very effective and efficient. So how are we going to solve this problem where you are actually creating a value chain which is very resilient, very agile, responding to the real-time scenarios? How are we going to make that? So the answer actually lies in, can technology, and AI is actually on top of what we would be building, but the technology is, the foundational layer is going to be the data strategy, right? The data per se, how are we going to pull in the data from all the players of the value chain, internal functions, all that data should lie in a common data platform for AI to function.
So you mean something, a lake house kind of a concept?
Absolutely. So I'm leading to that. Why? Because otherwise, as I mentioned, there are silos inherently in the system.
I can't agree more on that.
Yes. So if you are bringing the data using all the technology, preparing a data lake around it, and on top of it, you are building applications which are AI enabled, that is how these silos and the value chain is going to be connected. Let me take an example here.
Please.
So for one of the companies, we prepared an application on demand forecasting and sensing. And these are a lot of models which are going to churn data, include data of sales, including data of festivities, seasonality, some of the government initiatives where the income tax has been reduced. You are seeing that the consumption may increase, and that is all input Absolutely. to the model, demand forecasting and sensing model. If the model is now saying to the salesperson, yes, you may witness a spike in demand in maybe October, November, Diwali season and all, that has to flow down the value chain to the manufacturing, to the production planner, and from production planner to each of the suppliers of the components. How is it going to happen? Therefore, this IT application or the system that we will build will send the alerts, will send all the messages that are required to uplift the production at each of the supplier nodes. The dealers have to be ready. So all this is going to actually play a role in this whole application through the data and AI aspects.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The idea is that AI applications in the front end, who are more towards the hands of the users, they will pick up only if our backbone is strengthened.
Absolutely.
And the backbone happens to be right at the point of ingestion.
Absolutely.
I'll come back to that point because AI nowadays, and you are into that boiling sector, it's not just sitting into the front-end applications. AI nowadays are also embedded in these tools to do the cleanup process at the back end.
Correct.
So we'll come to that
Sure.
next. Now, from a manufacturing sector, let's say you have different business units. You have your own transaction processing systems. You must be having your ERPs and CRMs and WMS. So from, let's say, a core manufacturing producer or belonging to that sector, what's the average number of data sources and applications you handle on an average? Or let's say for your company?
Again,
including the legacy systems.
Yes. No, quite frankly, it will be difficult for me to answer that question for reason being, I'm pretty much a startup in that request. But even for a small startup like us, the number of different areas of data sources are huge, right? From the sort of some of the external data sources which are coming, plus the ERP data sources, the human data sources.
It's not just huge, it's disparate.
It is very disparate, and getting the data, and the data is not only siloed, it's not even clean. While I know AIs are trying to clean the data, but sometimes I think the cleaning of the data AI is also yet to mature to a level where it sometimes is killing the data which you need and is cleaning the rest of the data. It's not looking at sometimes when you're looking at a smooth curve, they're actually removing the outliners to make a small curve. But actually the outliners is what I'm looking at, and not at the main curve which is going through. So that's how the data handling challenges are really coming through.
So when you are having raised eyebrows about the back end, the cleanups, the data quality per se, you must be having some decision support tools, some BI systems where you look into, where you grasp those insights and take calls. or maybe Excel-based reports?
Currently, it is primarily Excel-based reports or pretty much some the regular BI tools sort of really
even
giving.
leading giants are relying on Excel tools.
Yes,
So
correct.
that's
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah, yes, sir.
It's irreplaceable. Now, let's say when you have an insight in front of you, do you ever wonder whether the insights which are being populated are correct, accurate? So what about the reliability related questions when you are going to take decisions based on those insights? And how much effort is going
I
around
think
that space?
over a period, I think we have developed a lot of confidence in the data which is coming
Right.
through, at least the insights which are coming through. But in spite of the confidence in the data, it is always a small pilot or a POC which is done on the data which has come through to revalidate whatever is coming
It's
through.
not junk.
It's
It's not
not, what is
misleading.
not coming through junk. And I think the real challenge, which is going to be challenge, is moving from POCs to large scale. At POC level, maybe you still may get good data. That data may give you good confidence that is going through. But suddenly at a large scale, things may look different. I think that is going to be the challenge. And currently, at least, we are very much in the POC state. So that is why a lot of these experiments, especially in the manufacturing sectors, will have to be taken in small incremental steps only.
Right.
Where you really validate yourself, get some confidence, and
Piecemeal basis is the
piecemeal
key
basis,
over
make the changes which you want to do.
So I'll
Just to
complicate
add-
this for you, Ashish.
Yeah, and just
Okay.
to add to what he just mentioned, right? And maybe just levels the ground for the audience in this room. We have done many researches and surveys through BCGs, and through BCGs, like every year, conducts lot of data crunching and reports and surveys. And BCG also inside we have what we call as 10, 20, and 70 principle. That's our very USP, very unique selling propositions, not just to our clients, but also to in general decision makers of the industry. Technology is never a problem. Technology is never a problem. It's always mostly related with the adoption, the change management, the human aspect of it. So what is 10, 20, 70? It's 10% algorithm, 20% data and technology. It's 70% about people, the silos between the teams, the change management aspect of it. And the more AI is coming into the place, more we are seeing this is going to be prevalent. Because why industry is struggling today? The first question they ask, we have now generative AI, how to make the use of it, right? They come to us. When you suggest something, it's too complicated for us. Help us build this. Here we are talking about AI replacing consultants and consulting companies. Here we are getting more sort of needed. And the more the chaotic market is, the more the business leaders will head to the consulting firms, or not just consulting firms, it's thought partners, you can say, right? So two things. AI, or for that matter, any other technology, was never and will never be a challenge, right? It will always to complement. The real challenges lies with the adoption, the human side of business, and what we also saw in the keynote speakers, right? 50%, 59%, 58%, the fact is going to be about EQ, right? How you manage that. So just to like level the ground up, like it's people, always, for the good things, for the not so good things.
I'll follow up with an MCQ over there. So
Yep.
before that, a first-hand experience I'll share with them. Let me acknowledge my limitations. So of late, I have been researching a lot around data governance. And in that pursuit, I have come across companies. So Schneider Electric being one of the best practices around the world, Axis Bank in India, and there are other players also. So I was constantly in touch with the senior leadership, with the development team, that what are the building blocks of data governance, what challenges and barriers you see in its implementation schema. And later I realized it all converged upon the human aspects, to such an extent that I had to rope in another faculty as a co-researcher from organizational behavior literature. And now we have understood that data governance is not the real problem. It's responsible leadership and data governance which need to be in tandem, and that's where the success and the key lies. So with respect to adoption, is it technology adoption as a bigger challenge, or discontinuance of the legacy systems which impedes technology adoption? One word answer. I know it's both, but the dominant one. You can take your own good time. And back to you, Puneet.
So I think Answer is yes, both.
I know.
Nature, depending upon the nature of industry, whether it's more digital savvy in nature or more legacy based systems
So
in
digital
nature.
maturity
So
of the
the
company.
customization angle will change. So consider this to be a spectrum. One end you have like people not talking to each other kind of a problem, like siloed processes and functions, and the other end is like people and mostly leaders not believing in in the upcoming new age technologies, right? So that's on the other spectrum. Depending upon the industry, you will find variety of different use cases, or it's a scale, right? So sometime it will lean towards the left hand side or the right hand side. For example, let's say a classic example would be an FMCG company, right, or a large CPG company. There, they will probably lean towards a little left. There, we need to convince the leaders that this is how the technology is disrupting your industry. Probably you should be on board.
So that's more of a bottoms up.
Yeah, that's more like top to
Top-down.
bottom, right? Now, let's say an industry like a very, I'm coming from an automotive background as well, right? So my supplier in down south who manufactures, let's say, ball bearing,
Ancillary.
ancillaries. You convince him that you should adopt that, and he will show you like why 20 reasons he should not go ahead with this technology. So that kind of a use case will lie on the completely right hand side of this thing. But the answer is both. The customization differs. So that's my answer.
Absolutely. So I have two cuisines for you in the plate. People not talking to each other and applications not talking to each other. And now you need to decode that for me.
Okay, so now people not talking to each other
Who's first?
is a process issue as well. But as I had mentioned in the earlier response as well, if you can make the technology or make people talk through technology, I think they can form a virtual team in a way to respond to any business scenario, and whatever it could be, customer or business protection, risk management from the loan delinquency perspective. For example, let me take that example. Now, if through the core banking data, through the data of credit bureaus, through the interactions of the customer on chatbots, through your customer service, you are able to make out, and all these inputs goes into the loan delinquency AI predictor, for example. If you are able to pick up that the person is going to default on a loan, all these alerts can actually go to the relevant stakeholders in the system to interact in a way to prevent this risk. So your customer service will not call that person and give another offer for a credit card loan or a credit card. Instead, the offer or the message to the person would be, we understand that you may have some challenges in repaying the loan. Can we talk about restructuring it? How is it happening? Because of the application is actually now able to communicate and bringing a virtual team around. Same alerts
Through systems.
Through
Through
the
systems
system.
and alerts.
Through systems. So applications, with the architecture that you have put, your applications are now starting to talk to each other and enabling the people to form a virtual team.
So if we translate that to our guests here, so the idea is that let's say retail banking, loans advances, credit card, financial instruments, they all know this is the problem we have.
Absolutely.
And what's the potential solution to it? It cannot happen overnight, because if we need to unify that, so something like a central data management system, you were talking about lake house concept.
Yes.
So
yes.
what challenges you see when we need to have an enterprise-wide centralization? Because that's not an easy task to have. We still have parallel reporting, half of the work being pulled up from Excels and again being dumped back to Excel reports. Where do you see the real challenges?
So the real challenge is a leadership challenge. I think that
Back
is
to
how.
people again.
Yes. The leader of the company has to make sure that he has to have a data strategy to move ahead in the next era.
Okay.
Because without that, nothing can happen. Now, so with this data strategy, sorry, I'm just forgetting the question again. Can
So
you repeat?
it was about, let's say, the central data management systems, or
Yes.
unifying everything, building a lake house.
Correct.
So where the challenges?
Yes, yes. So the challenges are, again, from the leadership perspective, first of the data strategy comes into picture.
So basically, ownership, the data ownership
Correct.
part, the data stewardship.
Correct, correct. Now, when the data strategy is in place, you need to execute through the data architecture. I mean, getting a bit technical, but bear with me.
So let's say we have certain data models which are doing the heavy lifting at the back end.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you're
Done.
creating the lot many standards for ingesting from various data sources. He talked about certain data sources. What are those standards? What I'm alluding to is you're building a platform to scale, because that is where the challenges are. Where if you are all the POCs that you have experimented with, you are not able to scale because you don't have the foundation, you don't have the platform to scale. That is where most of the projects are dying. Why are they failing at that point of time is the standards and policies, they need to be there. What happens to the certain kind of data, for example, PII data? What is needed to be done there? How is the data managed? Where is my data is again an issue.
So all that kind catalogs and metadata.
Yes, all that catalog preparation, data discovery, data classification, how does the metadata is maintained, all that is a foundation for any of the AI to have a trustable data.
So for
you talked about the trust in data also.
Right.
Now, trust for a data and what I have observed for business intelligence use cases is absolutely there. Why? Because, okay, you are having a single source of truth, which is, okay, you have done it 15 years back, 20 years back. But what happens for the cases where predictive analytics have to be done? Are they 100% reliable? No. You're improving the reliability and accuracy of the models, but they are still not 100% reliable. So we have to accept that fact and still give that innovation a chance, still give that, because that is the best thing that you can give inputs to your business users. Still the best thing. But for making the data more and more trustable, it is a common data platform that has to be built with a good data governance in place.
So for my audience over here, Puneet has summarized my 2 sessions of future tech strategies into 2-minute data governance rapid fire. So when you talk about unifying things, and we all understand data quality over there remains non-negotiable. But in that pursuit, when we are unifying things, a lot of cleanup is happening at the back end. There is another problem which evolves, and that's about latency. So, and latency becomes very critical when you have multiple players in that network. And I'm sure you must have come across that experience or problem. So Ashish.
A classic supply chain use case with latency is, let's say, control tower application or a digital twin in supply chain application, right? And the entire efficacy of this system, whether you do control towers and digital twin. So basically, the digital twin is it's a virtual replica of your physical supply chain happening. Control tower is basically, just for the audience, from your tier 3 supplier to almost to your end consumer, do you have your value chain visibility? And data latency is a huge challenge in these applications, because if you work on data which is even a day old or probably a week old, it means the whole efficacy goes down, right? And just to give you the numbers, it will go down probably from 80%, 85% to just like 65 to 50%, right? So just 1 week delay. Now, the latency is not by design of the system. Latency in data is the inefficiency of the system of pulling the data, massaging it. So data harmonization is a process, and like pulling back into the system, right? Now, industry is very happy even if they are getting 65% efficacy, because earlier they had like minus 15%, right? So they are happy with whatever they are getting. But for an institution like ours, and in the job we are in, we are not very happy with 65% efficacy. we actually want to go what we call as always on systems, right? So it's like real time data. And there are applications in the market, those who are from the IT space, they know like advanced planning systems, what we call as, they sit on top of ERP systems and the system of records, ERPs, WMS, TMS kind of a systems. It's their job to make that efficiency go up depending upon whether you are using it for demand forecasting, demand sensing, or you are using it for network optimization. They are bolt-on solutions or OTT solutions. They sit on top of these legacy systems in order to enhance these latency that you just talked about. Now, that solves one
So
problem.
you're talking about the WMS and the LMS sitting on the
Yeah.
top of the core of ERP.
Yes, so I'm talking about there are systems, advanced applications, which sit on top of these legacy
Let's say
systems.
warehouse management solutions, logistics management solutions.
So
Okay.
that, now, this I'm still talking about, let's say 5 years back. This was happening in the system in order to improve the data latency. Now, what we call, and BCG has an application like, and I am part of that team, supply chain AI. It's a solution that aims to build that always on system. And this means, of course, from your tier 3 supplier to your end consumer, you cannot make everything always on because you are talking about 6 continents, 100 plus manufacturing.
Different time zones.
Yeah, different time zone, 100 plus manufacturing units and so on. So what's the real solution? The real solution probably could be, and again, it's again experimental. One of the things which I have found works very well is you have your legacy systems, you have built on top of the solution OTT systems. Now, not all the application has real value for the organization. So basically, you run down your key priority initiatives to make the system always on, whether it's, let's say, promotion effectiveness, whether it's demand forecasting, whether it's NPS score increment, whether it's first mile delivery, last mile delivery, and so on. And you bet your future bet into one of those high value, high ROI driven, impactful solutions. And then you build a very customized solution only specific to those use cases. So again, applying the 80-20 principle here. So that is a very strong foundation to remove such data latency. So you have legacy system, either you get rid of it, unlikely. If you don't want to, you build on top of the solutions depending upon what are your immediate and futuristic organizational needs. And lastly, you pick your bet for the future. I want an extremely high level of reliability in my demand forecasting.
Right.
My service level should go from 80% to 96% in next 6 months or so. There you invest heavily with the right set of solutions, right set of people, and you bet your
So basically,
future bets.
you're
That's
saying
how.
that AI use cases need to be strategically aligned with my
Yes, I
bigger
mean, and
objectives.
especially to make such a complex value chain to work with always on data systems. This is one of the ways probably now the industry is looking
So
forward
an
to.
important aspect you talked about ROI and investments, and I'll ask Sameer to answer that. But
Huge challenge.
Puneet, we discussed this, that let's say we need a lot of quality and cleaner processes and tasks. We need to execute at the back end when we are sitting on top of applications. So it's not just AI sitting in the front end. Again, the same question. AI is also helping us clean up the mess we have. So that will be the next follow-up question. But let's first hear from Sameer about the investment part.
Yeah, before talking about it, let me just sort of touch base on what Puneet said about the data part of it. I think the human part of it, especially when you're looking at, see, you can look at the large organization, big organization where there's a lot of automations, the man-to-machine ratio is sort of reduced to a level where the number of people on the shop floor have reduced. But if you look at the core, and especially in a country like India, where there's a huge lot of people who are doing intensive work, that is where I think adoption is always going to be a challenge.
Yep.
and I'm not talking about just AI. AI adoption is in fact the sort of the maybe the higher level of this. Even regular small data adoption changes is going to be a problem, and that is where a lot of the challenges are going to come, and that is where there's a fear, very fear of a loss of job. I know even here, when all of them are in the elitist of institute are still worried, will I lose a job? While having enough database, enough history, enough these things to know that, yeah, this is not happening. But when you look at the bottom of the pyramid, I think there the fears are huge.
And
So there is going to be huge reluctance in adoption some of these things. And that is where we'll have to, how do you embed into them, slowly tell them that how do you do a change management with them, find them alternative things, skilling, and I'm sure the HR team later will talk about the skilling part of it later. But some of these things will play a huge role in making this whole AI adoption really successful.
So I can understand that what you're talking about as inertia towards AI and technological advancements is one, and for your sector, this inertia converts into some kind of resistance because you are too much into labor-intensive and capital-intensive projects, both.
Yes.
Now, when we talk about skills, we'll of course touch into that aspect also. But before skills, investment is also coming midway. So when you have already working around capital-intensive projects, you have huge windmills and equipments and assembly lines, and then you need to, let's say, top up investments, which will be adding to your not just operational but overhead costs around these technology maintenance, small, let's say, data model solutions. What's your take on that? How do you justify ROI for these?
See, I think there are two parts to this. One is if you look at it currently, the way we are living, a lot of us are living on what we call quarter to quarter, 90 days cycle. So they need to, these investments are not going to pay off in 90 days. You need to look at long-term investment, how these are going to be playing out. So that is one thing. So adoption with that, we'll have to look at saying how do you the leadership and how do you position this not only to yourself but to the ownership, to the street, saying that hey, this is long-term play where it's going to play out. But while this is long-term is going to play out, can I show them incremental benefits for them to convince me or convince the organization saying that, hey, I need to continue betting on that. And that is where the AI really adoption or any of these technology adoptions will have to play out. You will have to do small investments, but to really position that this is not going to happen in 3 months, 6 months. It's going to take a couple of years for it to really come through as a really effective benefit for that from an end user perspective. I think that's where the concerns of investments are going to play out.
Puneet,
I
you
will
have a
just
point.
want to add one point here on the ROI part. You know, you have to see the ROI in 3 terms, actually. If, you know, as a farmer or maybe a gardener, you are growing flowers, you are growing vegetables, and then you are preparing for a big crop to happen. ROI has to be seen in that light as well. There are some early wins wherein, you know, you can improve the productivity of your employees by just using co-pilots and other very, very easy to deploy tools in your organization. The ROI could be very visible and quick there. Then there would be certain investments which require 3 to 6 months kind of a time frame. But there are investments which if you don't do today, you would be out of the competition in 2 to 3 years. You have to look at those investments as maybe the ROI is not clear to you today, but it will be clear to you after 3 years when you see your competition who has invested in certain data platforms and other foundational aspects, but you kept on experimenting on agentic AI and reached nowhere. That is where I think these 3 categories have to be there in your use case map to get a proper ROI visibility. And that requires certain level of vision from the leaders as well. As to are you able to look 3 years down the line, where do you stand? So
and classic example, thanks for making this point, Puneet, because when the COVID hit, right, and when we were interviewing a lot of like Future 500 companies and Fortune 500 companies, and what's the impact of it, how the industry is going through change and all, a very visible dimension to this was companies who invested in digital and AI back in 2017, 18, whatever nascent forms were available. And most important forms was having a digital organization, having right digital skills, hiring in 17 and 18. Those were the companies who stood out significantly ahead of the competition when a disruption or a crisis like COVID hit. Now, I'm in supply chain field, and I could count like COVID crisis, semiconductor crisis, Suez Canal was stuck for. So those are the like global world supply chain disruptions nodes, right? So I do remember that. I'm not sure if you recall, there was a complete electrical shutdown in China for like 4 days. So these are world supply chain crisis points in just last 5 years. And my prediction is, in my personal opinion, but I'm 100% sure you can say the future in industries, the crises are going to be faster, frequent, sharper, but also you will come out of it faster. So every crisis will present an opportunity for a company to become a leader or a laggard. The investments like this and the point of view from the leaders on the ROI aspect is exactly this. The crises are going to be there, right? Whether it's supply chain, whether it's marketing, finance, strategy, or AI, every crisis will give you an opportunity to be ahead of your competition's curve, to create that value for your customers, to your stakeholders, and so on, where you want to be. And the answer is always, then it hits them. Like, yes, I want to be ahead, and hence I need to invest now for those, not just incremental wins, but also those substantial and strategical wins whenever the next crisis, next COVID, next war hits. I want to stay ahead in the curve. So just thanks for making this
So,
point up.
in a way, the idea, the most of the, I have interacted with CIOs and the technology leadership also. One of the biggest challenges they face and they see is to justify their ROI. Because when you are investing in small or big applications with short-term dependency, you can, but for sure, you cannot justify ROI. It takes some time to kick in, acceleration, adoption, and acceleration. But by the time you pause it or you postpone it for 2 to 3 years, mid-range, and by that time there is new technology hitting the shores. And let's say in 3 years, when you are about to realize technology X, you have technology Y in place and technology X gets obsolete. And there's no one who's talking about ROI. So that's an iterative cycle which has been a clear conundrum for all the CIO leadership. And it's
But I will just want to add to that, because when the previous technology is getting obsolete, the learnings and the best practices that you have actually learned from all those implementations and usage of it is actually going to make you much wiser while using the new technology. Why I'm saying this now, let's take an example of pure data warehouse. I'm just taking it. So whatever we did, I mean, even before the advent of cloud, there were CRM products like Siebel, and some industry-specific functional products would be there, which will be very much client-server technology and so on and so forth.
right.
Right. Now you are making a data warehouse, and you are actually bringing all the data across the various sources, mapping it to the product.
That being the fact.
That being the fact, right? Now you are learning something. You're not saying, how do I bring data and make it a good quality data, and batch processing is happening and so on and so forth, and then how are you actually managing the various application from the data perspective?
How they're integrated to the...
Correct. Now, when the advent of cloud, you're doing a cloud migration. Right. Now, all that learnings that you have done in your data warehouse implementations are very much applicable, because they are fundamental learnings. Similarly, I believe when we are learning about the AI aspects of it, predictive maintenance and all that models that have been there for past 10 years now, they are going to play a good guidance to you when you're using agentic AI and LLMs and so on and so forth, because the foundations would remain the same. The data science per se has not changed that much. The front ending, the power of the technology has increased. So I think that nothing goes obsolete per se, totally.
So,
But
Ashish, when we stand between a choice of technology renewal while planning our transformational endeavors, or when we are being constrained with financial investments, we look back to technology overhaul. How do you see AI kicking in and helping you balance between the two choices?
Yeah, I think in my personal view, AI is solving this problem in my view, right? Because earlier this space was not democratized. Earlier this space was, when I said this space, you mean the overall transformational, so IT system transformation, deploying a new ERP and so on. This was not commoditized, this was not democratized. This had a lot of players playing by the books and creating their own playbooks to, this is a 3 year long roadmap and hence this much investments and so on. With now AI coming in, this doesn't get obsolete. This option is still available with the organizations and industries. But what they also has the option, can I accelerate this transformation just to make sufficient improvement, not maybe transformational improvement, sufficient improvement. And let me take another example, right? And this is like very, very prevalent in my industry and my domain. So earlier, when we had to develop this demand forecasting modules and sales and operations planning, demand planning, capacity planning, and this is part of overall supply chain planning. And supply chain planning had, SAP, IBP, and SAP, APO, Blue Yonder, these kind of like, you know, uh, veterans of the industry. Those are still prevalent. The validity still remains. But you know what is happening in industry today? Companies like Microsoft, Google Cloud, Palantir, these are data companies, these are tech companies. They are challenging industries that we have better forecast models available for you. Why don't you just try us
Borrow and plug
for
and play.
this specific problems, right? And if, let's say, a CPG company, which is usually, has millions of SKUs, millions of like varieties of hundreds of time frames, weekly, daily, 3 months, 90 months, 60 days cycles, and so on. For them, this itself is $1 billion opportunity, right? So one way, so to answer your question now a company like Unilever or Dabur or P&G, they have now option. They can go this route if they want, forecasting plus services. They can go this route with Blue Yonders and the other planning solutions and so on, SAP, IBP, and still very much active and valid choice. But they also have choice: 3 years, $50 million investment, or 6 months, $1 million investment. And it's the ROI, and they can decide. Now they have option. So to answer your question, now AI has democratized the leading industry challenges and given option to the tech companies to play in this space. And forecasting was just an example. If I just take my domain, I can give you like 10 use cases: network optimization, routing optimization, CO2 and carbon,
Energy mining.
net neutral optimization, and so a classic example, right? So, I mean, in route optimization, you can just plug in the net carbon neutral as one of the constraint, and it will give you a much better route and the vehicle that you want to use. Now, this kind of challenge and problem statement, any tech company would be able to solve much better as compared to any supply chain company. You know what I'm trying to say? So that's the AI is now leveling up the ground, and it has now becoming more a meritocracy based and more problem statement based. And companies have all the choices in front of them. They can go the transformational route, the module wise route, or they can directly go to Microsoft and say, I already am using your all the Power Apps with Teams and Power BI and a ton of other apps. We have your ERP, which is Microsoft 365. Why don't you build a forecasting solution for us? And they will be super happy to do that without any much investments upfront.
So, Ashish, I have a follow-up question, and I believe maybe Puneet can take that up. So, when we talk about democratizing AI applications, we have seen company like tech giants Google giving Google Maps in our hand as consumers, or let's say companies like Viacom, they have democratized data science platforms to all their employees. For that has been their transformational initiative. But when we democratize, so over and above data quality, there are other nuances of data governance, let's say privacy and security, they kick in. That suddenly we are exposing ownership of all our data records to hands of many. What's your take on that? How do we handle the flip side of democratizing AI applications?
So, I will just share, I was in a meeting with the top two insurance company, IT department, okay, the head of data analytics from Munich had come to visit us, and then we were discussing, and they had a mandate for all the business users to embrace AI. I mean, we are talking to the IT team here. And the problem that they posed in front of us was, how do we do this? Because we are a data platform owner.
True.
From IT perspective, I am a data platform owner. I am not my main job is to, prepare the data in a more trustable way for the business to consume. And then there are IT teams from the functional business perspective who are making apps, AI apps on top of my data.
To anonymize them, mask them,
Right.
etc.
And various use cases also, because they are the business partner, IT business partner. So say, for example, claims department, and there is an IT team for claims, but there is a central team to whom we are speaking is a data team. Now they came up with a problem saying that we want to enable the business users directly. How do we do that? So there are various,
self-service.
You're trying to enable and unleash the power of AI in hands of business users now, not in the hands of IT. That is where the dramatic shift is going to happen. I am pretty sure many other companies are going to follow this, because ultimately, if you have to unleash the AI, the power of AI, it is through business users only. Can you make them very, very easy to handle and understand the use cases, and perhaps help them to make the use cases also? So the layer that is going to be there is one marketplace, so that each of the functions can put their use cases and others can utilize it. That is one. Second is the low code, no code platforms, which is already started. We are moving in that direction. But can it be further improvised for a business user who does not know Python, who does not know any of the languages, to create the use cases by himself?
So
now, to your point again, it cannot be just unregulated innovation that you are unleashing. You have to regulate it. So therefore, the data pertaining to that function should be controlled for that person in a role-based access control, attribute control, and all that stuff that will come in. All the security and regulation from the data perspective has to be there, and that is the ask for the IT department. So this is how, because they are well versed with what are the tools and techniques to control the data. But the usage of the data, so that the business users are able to do it, is something that, again, an architectural perspective has to come in, and all these low-code, no-code platforms will be deployed.
So I have a few very different, maybe some disruptive to your point, but I think first to his point, I think when you look at decentralizing or this thing, I think that is something which is going to happen everywhere. And that is where AI is going to play a good role. Somewhere you will have to start looking at AI as a service. And that is where some of these things can come through, rather than saying that I want to implement nothing. And especially when you look at ROI and investments here, it's going to be a big problem, because it's not just one-time capex. It's the constant investment which organization will have to do as an OPEX when you look at these data modeling, modification, all these things. That's where AI as a service could be one thing to look at. Before talking about the governance, what you spoke about, I certainly believe that over a period, companies like the low-code, no-code platform, the UiPaths and the APNs and other things, I think their time is over. you won't need these companies going further. Because with the way both adaptive AI as well as agentic AI and all these things are going to come through, you won't need these middle platforms. Everything will be so open. So it will be very different, and how these companies are going to reorient in something is something very interesting for all of us to see.
So with that democratization and openness, I remember again first-hand experience. 2015, while I was into my PhD journey, I had developed a new algorithm for recommender systems for group lanes and eBay. So I challenged their existing way. I was stuck in one of the codes. It took me 3 days to debug that. And today, when we use collab spaces and open end, very high code, but actively no code because of the Gemini on top of that, it takes hardly 3 to 4 seconds to debug that, and irrespective of the complexity of that problem.
So what's going to happen? So we're coming to the more important, the governance part. I think governance is something which all of us really need to be worried about. If you look at what has happened currently, where you talk about Gemini or Perplexity and all of them in India, they have completely made it nearly free for all of us. You need to understand why are they doing this. For them, China is a closed market. China is not available. China is closed from so many borders. So next biggest distinct population is us. And what is going to happen? How are they going to really use what is going to happen? Because we are going to be easily adopting whatever they are going to say. How are they going to influencing us in the future? What is going to happen? So that is why both data security, the whole governance part of it is going to be very critical. How not only we as an individual respond to it, but how we as a country respond to it is something which we'll have to really start thinking about deeply.
And that's where the perspective lies with the leadership, especially the CXOs.
Correct.
I remember 2 of my last projects were around data audits and BI roadmaps. So there was a clear understanding between us, between the CIO, CEO, and me as a solutions provider, that whatever toolkit or whatever roadmap you design, it has to be self-service enabled.
Absolutely.
We don't want vendor specificity. We'll empower our team. They will choose their own toolkit and they will start upon their journey. It will be quite democratized, decentralized for that matter. So I believe it's we are heading towards lunchtime, and before they doze off, let's open the floor to all our audience here. We can ask questions generally, and whosoever wants to have a take in that. You can ask questions to me also.
Yeah, am I audible now? Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Yeah. So thank you all of you for the very interesting conversation that we've had over the last.
You mean that?
Yeah, really mean that. I really mean that. So I have one question for Samir sir, that the AI applications that we're talking about are mostly in manufacturing, are mostly at the execution and application part of it. So where are the use cases of AI in the ideation part itself? Like maybe in iterative designs or analysis of, let's say, component analysis using CFD models or FEA models?
We didn't touch that area of, I think, the whole manufacturing space. I think there are a lot of areas in where, especially in the engineering side of it, there is a lot of AI business. So you want to reduce the weight of your machines. You want to reduce the space management of the space in the machine. So a lot of these areas, AI is now playing a role, and where you're seeing AI models being built, when you can iteratively try to build different patterns. In fact, having digital twins, which he spoke about, but even in the whole business models, the manufacturing models, these things are coming. So I think engineering part, I'm certainly seeing this. Other parts also, I'm sure of design, AI is going to play a role.
And there are both versions over there. You have decision support models, you have decision automated models. So you will not have to touch that blueprint at all if you are into automation, or you need, let's say, some manual intervention. They need to fine tune with their own constraints or own set of hyperparameters. You have options there also. But a lot of AI is happening.
And just a small follow-up in that case, who owns the data then?
So we have a framework for that, RSE, responsibility, accountability, and control. So only if we have governance in place, we can have that ownership and stewardship structure. That comes under the parlance of Data Governance Steering Committee.
Okay.
So they are the gatekeepers, essentially.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just answered on your behalf.
Hi everyone, my name is Pravanjan. Yeah. So I have worked on aerospace and defense related projects, in those kind of projects, even a small error can have significant consequences, right? So in this case, my question is how AI, I mean, in this age where speed and innovation is a forte for AI, can be balanced with, let's say, ethical accountability and human conscience. So that's my question.
Maybe around responsible AI you're talking about?
Yes, because even let's say a developer using a AI module to generate a code, and even a small error. Suppose he doesn't understand the business logic and he is writing a code using AI, giving a bad prompt. That can result. I mean, that can even result in a huge mistake. So how are we going to control that?
So I can take this question probably, right? So this goes largely what I said in my answer to my to first question that you asked, right? So there are industries which will adapt to some of the technologies much faster than some of the other industries. The industries which will take some time to adapt to such changes will have to address to exactly the problems like these, right? And I gave example of biopharma companies taking the drugs and testing on the human. It could also be aerospace and defense kind of a situation where it's not just a product, it also has consequence to the masses. So those industries, those are not, they are aware of these problems, right? So they have very stringent risk and compliance ecosystem built when they ship a solution, when they prototype a solution, and when they actually productionize the solution. So that that at a first layer that is taken care of. The another layer is the another sorry. The another solution is most of the organization, like most of the industries which are conscious of this effect coming in, they also have an AI enabled risk and compliance check built in. So they are aware of the fact that a coder might use a publicly available code which is not so good for your internal IP and you can be sued afterwards and so on. So they are also using AI. It's like hackers using AI to hack another hacker
With a free hand.
with a free hand. So it's ethical hacking, right? So it's an ethical AI, something like that. So,
No.
but you can only beat machines with the machines, right? So you can.
No,
Only,
I don't think we have completely solved this problem,
Yeah.
and we really cannot solve this problem. We just had to. You had an Air India crash, and we are still finding out where the error is. Was the human error, or was the design error, or this thing? So these things are going to go, and that's something which we'll have to live with. That this is going to be a problem. You will never have somebody taking full ownership. There will be risks on it. You will only have to weigh out how many times is the risk going to happen. Is it going to 1 in a million or is it going to 1 in 10 million? That's all it is. You just have to live with it.
To answer that, maybe the onus lies more with we as academicians to provide industry with that framework. So when you're talking about ethicality and he's talking about the black box of Air India incident, it's not just about these two aspects, it's conceptually more overloaded. So I believe responsible usage of technology is an overarching concept where ethics, explainability, accountability, trust, fairness, inclusivity, everything comes in.
But to counter that, I mean, don't you think, so coming from a, let's say, development background, so the developer might not know the exact requirement from the business side, and when it happens,
Okay.
he or she might code in a way that, let's say, satisfies his unit tests, but in the end, let's say the end user, I mean, let's say it satisfies 90% of the users.
I'm
That
getting
rest of the
from where you're
10%,
coming. So
yeah.
I'll just articulate and put it back to you. So let's say autonomous vehicles from Tesla and they're dashing into, let's say, human lives. Now the accountability is with the data science team, with the semiconductor chips which are embedded, or Tesla as an aggregator of all these. That's where your question lies. And that's where we are talking about that accountability is not a concept or let's say a bullet point which can be straight away injected in one of these use cases or workflows. It has to be a well thought strategic imperative which has multiple aspects and layers into it.
So in that case, do you think there should be an awareness, let's say in a country like India, where AI has become a huge thing, and for especially industries like what?
So first we need to sensitize the users and the developers both. We all need to be in the same page. And the idea of stakeholder inclusion is also a part of responsible AI. So we will only let it go beyond the POC stage, and we'll take it to the from development to real production, provided all stakeholders are a part of that. So
I just want to add one thing.
Puneet.
Just a week back, RBI has released a report called Free AI Committee Report. I would recommend everyone to read that because it gives 7 sutras about how do responsible AI has to work in India
In India.
for financial institutions.
I'll also
So
follow.
please have a look at it. I think that would be very
So
beneficial.
you have
And
frameworks, you have academic resources from here.
We
More questions?
agentic AI, production grade agentic AI frameworks are yet to come through because I have been dabbling with them, few of them. But when do you think they are going to come through and they are going to be accurate as far as decision support systems, or you can say decision autonomous systems they bring forth?
so, and on the regulation framework and all that agentic AI framework and how do you use AI across borders and all, each country is actually devising their own frameworks. European Union is very much focused on risk management aspect of the AI. And then if you move towards China, they are mostly into open source AI and they are more focused on innovation. Right, and then you look towards US. Every state of the US is having a different, policy and framework. So I believe it will take some time, but for unleashing the power of AI across the world, and that would happen when there is a cross-border alignment also with respect to the standards and the frameworks. I think that's going to take some time, I believe.
I'll refer to the offline discussion we were having. So, see, when we are looking to solve any problem, or we need to enhance or step up our value proposition, we are thinking of agentic AI as frameworks and workflows. But why at all we are only looking for agentic AI? It could be a simple RPA solving my problem. So is it that we need to go bold about AI, so we need to rope in agentic AI? Or we first need to a real solution to my problem, which could be simple scientific technology driven, data driven RPAs, which could solve my process, my workflow in minimum investments. So the idea is, I believe we as leaders, we need to first take step back and reassess whether we actually need an AI application over there in that particular workflow. It could be anything.
No, RPA is, say for instance, we have worked out our RPA systems, and we find it to be working up to certain extent, and we wanted to give it an edge, or we wanted to make it broad based. Okay. So under these circumstances, we want something which can be depended upon, which can be
Understood.
Yeah.
So mostly, I believe a thumb rule number could be, so an RPA around 6 to 8 months or 1 year of usage, then it should be qualified or eligible for an agentic AI implementation. Otherwise, accuracy and quality will be at crossroads then.
Lady at the back.
They have many raised hands.
Hi, can I ask my? Oh, so I'm an alum of this program. So thank you for hosting me this time. Thank you, Prof, for actually helping the crowd understand the nuances of it.
That's my job.
My first acknowledgement with Samir would be the point that you made that it's almost like data science is like driving the car, whereas data engineering is like paving the road. And being in consulting right now in data and AI, I find companies are grappling with this problem of having the right kind of data in the gold or medallion layer or EDF layer, whatever we may call. So then it brings to the question to Ashish, like when we are proposing something which is having a ROI effect, I mean, what's the investment? Because now you have to invest on data first, then you go to AI, which is far, far away. And then you said that you make it modular. But when you make it modular, you solve one part of the problem, maybe in the data part. But then if you need a console, because I'm working in AI for BI, it has to be a overall organization-based knowledge graph, or at least a function-based knowledge graph. If you make it in bits and pieces, it becomes very difficult to scale. You may show a two-story 3D printing output, which may work for one function, but once they want to scale, they will fail because then you have to do the foundation ground up again. So that brings the question to Ashish and also to Puneet also. How do you then show the ROI? And also, Prof also mentioned that you are already in a constant change environment. So by the time you hit the second or third quarter of getting some kind of an ROI, there is a question posed that should we use this or not? And my last bit would be that point that Ashish made. I am absolutely agreeing that 70% is people. But in my prior to MBA experience in a government organization with Ministry of Power, I saw that crisis actually helps people to adopt the technology that they have. So when COVID happened, whatever technology we as an organization have was being used in 100%. So I have seen leaders actually inducing crisis in their organization to make people adopt because rest of the adoption has happened. I know I have asked a lot of questions maybe, but
No,
these are all in my
I'll
mind.
summarize that so that he doesn't reveal the real recipe. Otherwise, you are hitting onto my bread and butter. So ideally, he's asking that what takes when we need right data for the right set of interfaces and right stakeholders there. Keep
So-
that very short.
Maybe the one phrase answer is, and I'm not sure if that justifies the answer to your question, but we have a phrase, and it used to be a very famous serial, "Kyonki saas bhi kabhi bahu thi," right? So every tech giant was a startup, right? So, and why it's people dependent, why 70% is people, why crisis makes things faster, crisis makes people do things faster is at every maturity of your industry which you are in, if you are a $500 million company today or a $5 trillion company today, same strategy will not work. So if you are a startup today, you can't invest $50 million upfront in transforming your systems. You will go through democratized AI solutions that has been provided. You will work around. And I have been part of Flipkart back in 2013 and 14 when the first Xiaomi mobile was launched, right? I was part of that team. So we were working on such a jugaad system back then. And likewise, again, kyunki saas bhi kabhi bahu thi, because when Google was also some point of time it was Flipkart, right? That time it was not thinking about the systems and process and the data architecture. At some point of time it did, right? So the answer to your question is, depending upon which organizations you are working for, what your role is, or what you are advising to, which company you are advising to, your recommendation should also change. If it's a $50 billion company or a $500 billion company, there is a lot in stake. You can't go wrong with responsible AI. You have to have the risk compliance right team, responsible AI team, and so on. But if you are a bootstrapped startup and barely you had secure a seed B, Series B funding, you would work with whatever DAM is available in the market, right? So that's one part of the question from my point of view, right? And it's a very practical problem. Nothing wrong with using this system or that system or this data quality or that data architecture. It's just a choice, right? And strategy is always a choice. First part of your question. The second part of the question is crisis-induced adoption. You remember I gave this example of a spectrum. On the left-hand side was the leadership onboarding, and the extreme right-hand side was, so the top-bottom and the bottom-up kind of a thing, right? So whenever, as BCG, we had opportunity to go to the boardroom discussions, talk to the CXOs and chairmen and so on. Most of the time, they want us to be the face of that adoption, right? And yes, they know that unless we do this, because they have a broader lens, the organization will not scale fast or fast enough, right? So they challenge their ecosystem, and probably it's a long answer, but I would like to give this 30-second example. We were also doing the same thing. We gave an ERP module of manufacturing module to the sales and operations planning. So it's the sales module, right? So we swapped the roles, right? You deal 1 week with sales module and you deal 1 week with the planning module. And they were going bizarre. It was, for me, it was like a Tare Zameen Par moment, where They were saying, this is bizarre, this is like, and the other person was telling, this system is so easy, why can't you adopt to it, right? And the other person was saying, it's not easy, it's so unintuitive. That's the challenge on the extreme right-hand side. That makes the thing go wrong in most of the transformation. To summarize your second question, what the crisis-induced adoption is precisely this. It's the inherent reluctance to the newer cognition that is happening in the industry. People refrain to do that. You and I refrain to do that, right? So hence we onboard the leaders that why don't we do this? Or we create a sort of a plan or a learning mechanism to make things do better. So, long answer to your long question. Right.
A short answer, if you need a custom solution, we'll connect offline.
Yes, I was going to say the same. Because I think you need
Last
discussion.
rows, they have been waiting for a while.
We should give option to the lady who is raising her hand, right?
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for this insightful panel discussion. I am Akanksha, and my question is to Mr. Ashish. So you mentioned that technology is never a challenge, but human adoption is, right? And coming from a supply chain consulting firm, I have faced a lot of issues with the client. And I used to think that if we take strong buy-in from the client, this will be easier, the adoption will be easier. But still, we used to face a lot of issues. So as per your experience, based on that, what strategies have proven effective in overcoming these resistance?
Yeah, so if I have to simply give like 3 bullet points, right? So the first would be, which we just answered, like onboard your leaders. If your leaders is not walking the talk, it's gonna fail from day one. That's number one. Number two, probably a radical solution, but I have seen this work in nature. Supply chain organization, depending upon which company, which industry you are part of, is part of it encompasses your manufacturing, your sourcing, your procurement, your materials, all such departments, right? So it's a value chain. Keep changing your people from one function to another. I'm not saying forcibly, but as part of their career move, as part of their learning and development, keep changing the people so that everyone knows everything and they all face the similar challenge, so that once you brought in the system solutions, they're ready to adapt to it as compared to reluctant to it. So that's the second bit, right? The third thing, Akanksha, is part of the problem you have to live with, right? So there's only so much you can do. And for any such adoption to make it work, all you do is communicate, 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 right? And there are harder solutions to it. If some people are actually becoming problem, then you have to take right actions. If the technology adoption is becoming problem because of the lack of the skills, then you upgrade, you focus on the L&D, so hence again communicate about the learning and development. And just be prepared, 10%, this is a bell curve, like life is a bell curve. There will be 10% of nuances where you can't do any of it. Either you live with it or you get rid of it. So
I just want to add, if any of his strategies are not working, just say, "Kyunki saas bhi kabhi bahu thi."
yeah, I mean,
Essentially, that's orchestrating management's orientation and the organizational level, organization's structure and organization's culture. So it's pivoting around these 3 aspects.
see, how nuanced is this? This is an AI panel and we have talked probably 60, 70% of it is about the HR and the human aspect of it. So that's the beauty of person, a human, right? I mean, that will never go away.
Hi. So, hi, I'm Rajat here. So, my question is regarding the human augmentation. Its outcome is, the upside is unquestionable. It is going to improve labor productivity and it will result improve results. But the downside risk that I foresee forthcoming is it is going to increase inequality in the society. And how we as future leaders can take decisions that use this technology, human augmentation, to build a better society, more equal society for all.
maybe Samir will take that. Or
So, if you see from India's perspective, the government's initiatives and policies on the AI framework are very much augmenting the infrastructure that India has already built. Okay, all that UPI thing, and then ONDC, all that aspects. If you are able to leverage that infrastructure, which is now at the bottom of the pyramid as well, then even the bottom of the pyramid people can actually, with some literacy, can leverage AI in, or contribute to innovation, and all that inequality that you're talking from that opportunity perspective would not be there. That's what the aim of government of India is. I'm not talking about the financial inequality and all, but at least from the opportunities perspective, this is something that India is leading to.
And especially from an employment opportunity side,
Correct.
I will like to draw an analogy. See, when we as economy, we evolved, and from agriculture, we moved on to, let's say, a lot of replacement happened around projects. So you can see the shift of working population from farming lands, they went into unorganized construction sector. And that's a similar, not a similar, an analogous change we are witnessing right now. So when you talk about mainstream workers in a corporate or in an assembly line, in a manufacturing setup, we are not actually trying to replace them. We are just changing the trends. So we need, let's say, academic institutions to pull up their socks, and we need to understand that what's the real skills which we need to roll out with. So let's say if you look around management education 10 years back, AI and business analytics never used to be mainstream areas. And now we have seen information systems splitting around business analytics, AI, decision sciences, and that's the shift which is happening in tandem with the expectations over there. So that's my 2 cents to your question.
Hello, sir. I'm Abhishek Bava, and I have a question for Samir. There is one thing what I'm worried about, that there's so much of emphasis on automation and getting everything under AI. It could take perhaps one computer virus to have a cascading impact all across the industry. So how much important it is to have circuit breaking in decision making process, and some key aspects of decisions should be kept manual and at the hands of humans, because maybe it could, say, wipe out the entire digital system of the world, just like how COVID happened and it spread across the world. So this is the perspective I'm coming from.
I'm not sure it's going to be possible to really have a system where you can have such air gaps between these systems so that one system really is separated from the other. I think in the whole world, when you look at it, whether the whole digital communication in the world, or now you see about the nuclear things in the world, it's always going to be connected. So we'll have to be prepared, and that's where I think he spoke about earlier. There are going to be challenges. We are going to be small pockets of challenges, like the power outage in China, which he spoke about. It's huge. We did not realize it in India as much. But if you can look at a country which is the second most populous country in the world having a power outage for 4 days, so some of these things are going to happen. It's only how well we quickly have systems to quickly react to them. How quickly are we able to really plug those gaps immediately, and that's where our readiness will be. It will not be. We'll certainly have to live with them.
Resilience.
Resilience is what is going to be. And coming to your question, I think it is when you talk about skill development, and that's where your question is, when the whole paradigm shifts, the new so new skills will be required, and people will have to adopt. And I'm sure each one of these skills, right from the bottom of the pyramid skills to all these skills, will help. I'll give you one very simple example. In the earlier days, everybody had a secretary who used to take dictation of notes, and then somebody would type it on a typewriter and give it to you. They used to use a language called long man's shorthand, long stenographers and all that. They're all gone. So for a middle time, because we now write our own emails, we don't need them. So the number of people who had the personal secretary roles had reduced big time in the industry. But overall found that whole group has come back again, saying there are different value which they can add, whether how they can better manage the leader's time or whatever. So these things have come. So they have reoriented themselves and come back. So such things will keep on happening.
So we'll close that with a humor. When you see Gen AI supporting your workflows and your curation, I recently got an email for an internship opportunity. So it was, dear professor, generic, comma, I am square brackets, your name, comma, your institution. And that was the email. So that's where, let's say, AI going wrong. And that's where human conscience comes up.
So, thank you so much to our distinguished panelists for the insightful discussion. Audible now? Yeah, okay. So, thank you so much to our distinguished panelists for the insightful discussion. So, we heard a lot of very, very valuable insights, especially from like I belong from the core manufacturing as well as from the medtech sector. So, for me, this was like crazy insightful, as well as we heard so many of the concepts that we had learned in our IT class by Professor Devashi Saha. Some of those concepts, I mean, so insightful. So, as we conclude this session, we would like to felicitate our speakers for the day. So, first of all, I would like to felicitate our moderator, Professor Rahul.
We belong to the same institute.
Yeah, I know. Still, sir, for today, you are.
I believe it first goes.
So,
to the
I would like
guests.
to call upon the Lattice team itself to felicitate Professor Rahul. So, come on, guys. Now, I would like to call upon Paras to felicitate Mr. Ashish Pathak. Paras. Now, I would like to call upon Shubham Agarwal to felicitate Mr. Sameer Bendre. And I would also like to call upon Nivriti to felicitate Mr. Puneet Sakhuja. Also, I would like to invite Mr. Chinmay Gavankar to the stage. So we would also like to felicitate him. And I would like to call upon Pushkar Deshpande to please come on the stage and felicitate Mr. Gavankar. Pushkar. Now, I would like to call upon Mr. Saurabh Gareriwala, and I would like to call Sai Abhishek to please felicitate him. Thank you so much, everyone, for the first part of our session.